Part 19. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, Past and Present. Chapter 181. Chapter 181 Human Skin Mask. Mother Zhao patted the old lady on the back and comforted her. "Old lady, please calm down. It's just that the second young lady is the master of the Su family after all. You can't really let people take names casually, right? Go and call the marquis." The old lady also understood this truth in her heart and quickly gave the order. Su Changqing entered the house briskly. "Mother, what do you want from your son? Do you know about Su Leun?" Seeing the old lady's worried look, Su Changqing thought of something and slapped himself on the forehead. "Look, I forgot about it, mother, you don't have to worry about this." Looking at Su Changqing's face, Ms. Su had a guess in her mind. "Did you do this? Then Sun Xiao hasn't entered the palace yet, so my son must make him more nervous. Are you sure you can succeed?" Ms. Su always felt uneasy. She still remembered that Su Leun was a very evil girl. Su Changqing did not take Su Leun to heart at all. From his point of view, how can such a girl from Jingzhou defeat him, even if she is good at talking? What's more, King Yu is helping him. Thinking of King Yu, Su Changqing's eyes flashed. "Mother, what is the relationship between King Yu and Wan'er?" "How do I say this?" Ms. Su was stunned. What relationship could Wan'er have with King Yu? Even she doesn't know? Su Changqing stepped forward and whispered, "Prince Yu sent someone to tell us that we should withdraw from the marriage with the Li family. What do you think, Mr. Ho?" Hearing the word break off the engagement, Ms. Su's originally ugly face improved a little. Su Weiner must have been related to Prince Yu, and the reason why Ms. Su was unhappy was that Su Weiner had never mentioned this matter to her. But if she wants to break off the engagement, Ms. Su becomes more generous again. Su Changqing looked hesitant. "Mom, I'm afraid it won't be good to break off the engagement with the Li family in such a polite way." He didn't want to lose such a good supporter from the Li family. Ms. Su glanced at Su Changqing and knew what was thinking in his mind. She previously wanted Su Leun to marry into the Li family, but the current situation was no longer suitable. The marriage with the Li family is not urgent. After you marry Wen Yao, you can let Su Yuqing marry her. Rain or shine. Su Changqing's eyes lit up and he thought it was a good idea. "Then what do you think of Prince Yu's son?" "You don't need to reply yet, I have to ask Wan'er about this matter." When Ms. Su mentioned Su Weiner, a flash of suspicion flashed in her eyes. She thought about Su Weiner's reaction before. Could it be that Weiner had been entangled with King Yu for a long time, which was why she rejected the marriage to Li Rui several times? Thinking about it this way, Madame Su felt that it was quite right. It can also explain the previous situation. Dali Temple. Su Leun was sitting at the table having dinner, with Lian Xian waiting on him. When he went out today, Su Leun only took Lian Xian with him, so Lian Xian was the only one with him at this time. Fortunately, Wang Xiaoyi did not stop Lian Xian from following. "Miss, don't worry, Madam will definitely find a way to help you. I'm not worried about that." Su Leun shook his head and waved to Lian Xian. When Lian Xian got close to her, Su Leun whispered, "Tonight, you sleep on the bed." "Miss." Lian Xian looked at Su Leun in confusion, but seeing her expression of certainty, she had no choice but to nod. When it was time to go to bed, Lian Xian saw Su Leun wearing her own clothes. She was even more confused and climbed into bed. "Miss, do you really want to do this? It's just one night, don't worry." As he spoke, Su Leun blew out the candles and lay down on the small bed under the bed. Lian Xian could only swallow her saliva, and according to Su Leun's wishes, she covered half of her face with the quilt. The night wind howled outside the window. The door was quietly pushed open. Su Leun closed his eyes and listened to the movement in the room. The sound of heavy breathing gradually approached. The visitor tiptoed to the bed. After waiting for a while, the person bent down, lifted the quilt, and picked the person up from the bed. Just as she was about to walk out of the house, the yard suddenly lit up. "Old lady, what are you doing holding my maid in your arms?" Sulayun's voice sounded from behind the other party. Ms. Lu paused and ignored the guards in the yard. She lowered her head to look at the woman in her arms. "It's not Sulayun." Liu's pupils shrank, and he didn't know how to react. Sulayun approached her and asked, "Why don't you speak? Or are you worried that your voice is different from what it was during the day?" "Ms. Lu, put the person down in your arms quickly." Wang Xiaoyi stood in front of the guard and shouted coldly. "Obviously, this is a trap." And Lu fell into the trap. Her cloudy eyes flashed with viciousness, and she was about to strangle Lian Xian's neck. Behind her, Sulayun had long been on guard against her move, and the silver needle in his hand flashed past. It stabbed into her neck. Ms. Lu grunted and gave up her strength on her hands. Seeing this, Sulayun stepped forward and supported Lian Xian. By this time, Lian Xian had woken up. "Miss." Seeing the scene in front of her, she was still a little unresponsive. Lu was caught by the guards. But she remained silent. "Put the person in jail first," Wang Xiaoyi ordered. After the guards took the person down, he looked at Sulayun and said, "Miss Su, I frightened you." "Mr. Wang, you're welcome. But how do you know, Miss Su, that she will come tonight?" Before dinner, Sulayun met Wang Xiaoyi. "Tell him that there will be a situation at night and ask him to prepare manpower." Wang Xiaoyi didn't really believe it at first, but thinking of Liu's weirdness and Sulayun's affirmation, he agreed with some hesitation. Unexpectedly, something strange happened. Lu was imprisoned in a dungeon. When Wang Xiaoyi came in, there was a guard carrying water behind him. Seeing Wang Xiaoyi, Lu glanced at him and lowered his head. Wang Xiaoyi looked at the basin of water and nodded. The guard came forward, raised the basin, and poured it on Mrs. Liu's face. Lu never said a word. But gradually, she realized something was wrong. She looked around in panic, and the discomfort on her face made her more and more anxious. A piece of skin gradually appeared on her chin. Wang Xiaoyi narrowed his eyes and waved his hand, "Go and have a look." The guard stepped forward again and wanted to turn Mrs. Liu's face away, but was stopped by Mrs. Liu. It's just that Mrs. Liu was tied to a shelf, and no matter how strong she was, she couldn't resist the guards. Following the floating skin, the guard raised his hand and pinched it. "Then push hard in your own direction." Only a tearing sound was heard. The guard pulled off a human skin mask. The person who was exposed to everyone's gaze was no longer Mrs. Liu, but a thin man with a dull face. He realized that his identity had been exposed. He actually opened his mouth and bit hard. "Quick!" Before Wang Xiaoyi had time to speak, poisonous blood spilled from the corner of the man's mouth. Died. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 182. Chapter 182. The old lady's moved expression. When Sulayun arrived, the body was carried out. She stepped forward and took a look, confirming that the other party was indeed poisoned and died. "Miss Su, I was negligent in my duties and did not notice this. What is Mr. Wang going to do?" Sulayun didn't expect this to happen, but now that the person is dead, she can't bring him back to life. What matters now is how to give an explanation to the people. Wang Xiaoyi frowned and said, "I have arranged for someone to check the roster. Since Liu's identity is false, there is no such person as Zhang Xiaoyi. I think Mr. Wang can check this Zhang Xiaoyi." Sulayun thought for a moment and reminded. When the other party said this name, he didn't seem to hesitate much. Perhaps, This name is a breakthrough. Then I'll have to make Miss Su work harder these days and stay at Dali Temple. Wang Xiaoyi nodded and said he would check it out. Sulayun watched him leave and then entered the house. But she was not in a hurry to go to sleep, but sat there and waited for a while. The flowing wind appeared. Ms. Su, I arrested someone, and I think it must be related to this matter. It's just that he was a bit harsh, and we are still working hard. Is there any news about my brother? Sulayun turned to look at Lai Yufeng, his tone was somewhat profound. Lai Yufeng's eyes rolled unnaturally. Miss Su, I'm afraid this news is. I just want to say one thing, my brother Su Ye, is he alive or dead? Sulayun took a deep breath, looking at Lai Yufeng with a different look. Lai Yufeng gritted his teeth, but did not say anything. Miss Su, I can't tell you this matter. Unless I get the permission of the prince. Then you go ask His Highness King Jin. Su Ye is my brother, and I am my sister. I have the right to know his life and death, don't I? Sulayun guessed something from Lu Feng's expression. But she didn't say it clearly. The next day, at the gate of Su Mansion, Su Weiner was supported by Granny Lan and got out of the carriage. Su Weiner smiled and rolled her eyes when she saw the door of the Su family that she had not seen for a long time. Mother Zhao was waiting at the door. Miss, the old lady is waiting for you in the yard. Su Weiner responded calmly, no longer as affectionate to Aunt Zhao as in the past. Mama Zhao saw it in her eyes. Although she felt it was a little strange, she didn't take it to heart. Just think, it's Su Weiner who has come back after many days and hasn't gotten used to it yet. Go to the old lady's yard. Along the way, many servants greeted Su Weiner one after another. I didn't stop until I entered the old lady's yard. Old madam, the eldest lady is back. There was a noise inside the house. Let Weiner come in. Mother Zhao opened the curtain and let Su Weiner in. Grandma Lan followed Su Weiner and wanted to go in, but was stopped by Aunt Zhao. Grandma Lan, let's wait outside for a while. Facing Granny Ian's cold eyes, Grandma Zhao curled her lips. After so many years, she still thinks this Granny Lan is weird. Mama Zhao took Granny Lan to the hut next to her. Tea has already been prepared inside. Grandma Lan only glanced at it and did not drink. Grandma Lan, it seems that I haven't seen you in the past few days when the eldest lady has been away. I don't go out very often. Aunt Zhao should know that very well. Grandma Lan returned calmly. Mama Zhao nodded. Grandma Lan still has this habit, but why do you seem to have come back with the eldest lady today? I was afraid that others wouldn't be able to pack my things, so I went there myself. Early this morning, MRSU used the excuse of being seriously ill to ask Aunt Zhao to send someone to Longjio Temple to bring Su Weiner back. After all, there have been so many things going on in the Su family recently. MRSU is too worried and it is inevitable that she will fall ill. She also wants her granddaughter to be by her side to take care of her. So the people from Longjio Temple did not stop him. Although Granny Ian's expression was very natural, Grandma Zhao still felt a little weird. 15 years ago, Sun Gro gave birth to Sulayun at Dabi Temple, but was left out by a woman from the Li family. At that time, the situation was urgent and no one noticed it. Sun Gro even got seriously ill after giving birth and was unable to breastfeed Su Weiner, so they had to find another wet nurse. It was at this time that Granny Lan appeared. Later, seeing that Granny Lan was doing a good job and that Su Weiner was particularly close to the nanny, the Su family kept Granny Lan here. Oddly enough, Granny Lan didn't often show up to see people after she came to the Su family. The food is also different from others. Mama Zhao still remembers that the most profound impression she had was when she saw Granny Lan eating a bowl of porridge made of unknown materials. The porridge looked gray-green and was really hard to swallow. She didn't even know how the other party ate it. As Grandma Zhao was thinking, her eyes unconsciously fell on Granny Ian's face. The more she stared at it, the more she couldn't help but squint her eyes. Why does she think Granny Ian's appearance is a bit strange? Mother Zhao, I think the peony garden is still being sorted out. I'll go back and take a look first. Grandma Lan stood up and left without waiting for Aunt Zhao to say more. Mama Zhao shook her head, feeling that she had just been dazzled and overly preoccupied. At this time, the old lady was in the house. Su Weiner was kneeling in front of Mrs. Su. Weiner, Grandma only wants to tell the truth. When did you meet King Yu? Grandma, Weiner doesn't dare to lie to you. Facing Mrs. Su's questioning, Su Weiner looked aggrieved. Weiner really only met His Highness Prince Yu at the palace banquet this year. Didn't you also see it then? Of course Mrs. Su still remembers that Su Weiner danced at the palace banquet and the veil happened to fall in front of King Yu. Is it really such a coincidence? At that time, she had no doubts, but now that she was pointed out, she became suspicious. Seeing Su Weiner's eyes dim with tears, Mrs. Su still couldn't bear it. Okay, get up quickly. Grandma has misunderstood you. It's not my fault, it's Weiner's fault. If Weiner had told you earlier, it wouldn't have happened like this. It's all Weiner's fault. Su Weiner said and glanced at Mrs. Su without any trace. After seeing the helplessness flashing across Mrs. Su's face, Su Weiner continued, Grandma, if you are angry, punish Weiner. Weiner deserves it. You kid, what are you talking about? Mrs. Su shook her head and took Su Weiner's hand. Do you really have no feelings for Li Rui? Grandma. Su Weiner raised her eyes to look at the old lady, then quickly lowered her head. Her voice was a little dull. Brother Rui and I grew up together, how could it be possible to say that we have no feelings? Only after seeing King Yu, Weiner knew. It turns out that the feeling I had for Brother Rui before was never love. Mrs. Su's face was moved as she listened to Su Weiner's words. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 183. Chapter 183 is somewhat familiar. Su Weiner continued to cry, Grandma, I know that Brother Rui and I are engaged, but do you have the heart to let your granddaughter marry someone you don't love and regret it for the rest of her life? These words touched Mrs. Su's core, and her eyes became red. She stroked Su Weiner's back and comforted her. Grandma understands that your marriage to the Li family will be settled for you. Grandma, Weiner knows that you love Weiner the most. But you have to promise Grandma one thing. Mrs. Su's expression was a bit solemn. Su Weiner hurriedly said, Grandma, if you need anything, just say it, Weiner will definitely do it. Before the marriage between you and the Li family is settled, you must not let outsiders know your affection for King Yu. You also know that people follow what they say, and once any unpleasant news comes out, it will not be a good thing for you or the Su family. Mrs. Su stared at Su Weiner closely, as if she could not refuse. Su Weiner blinked and nodded heavily. Grandma, don't worry, Weiner listens to you. That's good. Mrs. Su breathed a sigh of relief, pulled Su Weiner up and let her sit next to her. She looked at Su Weiner's side face, and her tone became more loving. When you come back this time, you will stay in the Su mansion. After spring, Grandma will definitely make arrangements for you. Thank you, Grandma. Su Weiner lowered her eyes, disdain flashing across her eyes. She has been with Mrs. Su for so many years. On the surface, it is for her own good, but nothing is done for the Su family. What Mrs. Su really cares about is probably the Su family. Su Weiner chatted with Mrs. Su for a while before getting up and leaving. Back to the peony garden. People are still busy. Miss, you are back. Yuyao saw Su Weiner and hurried forward to greet her. Where's Granny Lan? Su Weiner asked. Grandma Lan is in the house. I have something to say to Granny Lan, please don't let anyone come in. Yes. Su Wainer entered the room. Granny Lan was sitting on a chair, wondering what she was thinking. When Su Wainer came closer, she raised her head and looked at her. Miss. Grandma Lan stood up and nodded to Su Wainer. Grandma Lan, how is Li Rui's condition? Li Rui's yard is tightly surrounded, and I haven't been able to find it yet. Su Wainer glanced at Granny Lan. Although Granny Lan had been with her not long after she was born, she still hadn't figured out who Granny Lan was after all these years. She has never seen the things Granny Lan gave her. Sometimes, Su Wainer is even a little afraid of Granny Lan. She was worried that one day, if Granny Lan betrayed her, she would be quietly destroyed by the other party. Miss, what are you thinking about? Su Wainer came back to her senses, looked at Granny Ian's worried eyes, and pursed her lips. Grandma Lan, I feel a little uncomfortable. But you caught a cold. Speaking, Granny Lan was about to take Su Wainer's pulse. But she was dodged by Su Wainer. Grandma Lan, it's not that I feel uncomfortable, I'm just thinking about Li Rui. If I don't know about his situation, I won't be able to rest at ease. Granny Lan frowned, but the next moment her eyes became firm. Don't worry, miss, I will go to Li's house tonight and I will definitely find out the situation. Then I'll trouble Granny Lan. Su Wainer stared at Granny Ian's leaving figure, with the corners of her mouth raised slightly. She wasn't worried about Li Rui's situation at all. She just wanted to see how far Granny Lan could go for her. I hope Granny Lan will not betray her trust. Dali Temple is still investigating Zhang Xiaoyi. Sulayun was happy to have some free time and stayed in the house with Lian Xian. Miss, how do you know that the other party will come to you at night? Lian Xian still felt frightened when she thought about what happened last night. Fortunately, the young lady was smart and let her lie on the bed. Otherwise, if the young lady was kidnapped, she would not be able to save the young lady. Sulayun thought for a while, I just took a guess. It's not last night, but tonight, or tomorrow night. Although he wears more clothes in winter, I still saw his Adam's apple. Tell me, how could a woman do this? Do you have an Adam's apple? I didn't even notice it. Lian Xian was stunned. She didn't expect that the young lady had even seen this. But there's something I didn't expect. Sulayun shook her head. She did not expect that the other party would commit suicide. As soon as the words fell, Lian Xian saw Sulayun's expression condensed. Miss, what's wrong? Lian Xian, let's go take a look at the body. Ah. Lian Xian subconsciously followed Sulayun and ran out. The corpse is now on display in the morgue of Dali Temple. When she arrived at the place, Lian Xian felt a chill all over her body and did not dare to go in. Seeing Sulayun push the door in with a calm expression, she gritted her teeth and followed in. Miss, what are we doing here to see the body? Lian Xian was shaking as she followed Sulayun and looked around uneasily. There were not many corpses in the morgue. Apart from the Lu who committed suicide, there were 3 corpses scattered around. Sulayun ignored the 3 corpses and walked straight to the body of Ms. Lu. She took out the silver needle from the back of Mrs. Liu's neck, not because she was afraid that the needle would be seen and suspicious. After the silver needle was taken out, Sulayun burned it on the candle for a while, and then stabbed it into Ms. Liu's throat. Lian Xian watched Sulayun's movements and swallowed several times. The silver needle gradually turned black. Sulayun's expression was not very good looking. She stretched out her hand to pry open Ms. Liu's mouth. Seeing this, Lian Xian hurriedly said, Miss, please wait a moment. With that said, Lian Xian took out a handkerchief from her arms and handed it to Sulayun. Miss, please be careful. Sulayun took the handkerchief and opened the mouth of Ms. Lu with the handkerchief. A very faint stench wafted out. Lian Xian didn't smell it. When she saw the blackened blood in Ms. Lu's mouth, she couldn't help but feel nauseated. She covered her mouth and turned around not to look at the body. But when she turned her head, she saw a corpse not far behind. It was not covered with a white cloth and its face was naked, which made her even more frightened. Lian Xian had no choice but to turn her head back and only stared at Suleun, not daring to move. "It's really the same poison." Suleun said something in a very soft voice. Lian Xian didn't hear clearly and asked, "Miss, what did you say?" "Let's go." Suleun took off the veil and lit it on the candle. When they left the morgue, the veil was half burned and was thrown to the ground by Suleun. Suleun felt vaguely familiar with the fact that Lu had committed suicide before, but he didn't remember it for a moment. It wasn't until Lian Xian asked a few questions just now that she suddenly remembered. The way Lu Shi committed suicide was somewhat similar to Aju. However, Aju failed to commit suicide because Wei Ya took the poison away. Suleun only took a glance at it, but remembered the smell. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 184. Chapter 184. Li Rui is stupid. Now when I came to the morgue and smelled it, I was sure that it was the same poison. In other words, this Lu and Aju seemed to be subordinates of the same person. Thinking of the mask Aju had drawn previously, Suleun sighed. Even though she saw Xiao Shenjia wearing that mask in her dream, she is still full of doubts now. She didn't know why she had such trust in Xiao Shenjia. Suleun shook her head. She couldn't investigate this matter for the time being. She had to look at the situation with Mr. Wang. Wang Xiaoyi was working in his room when he heard someone say that Su Changqing was here. "Mr. Su. Master Wang, I haven't seen you for a while." Su Changqing stepped forward to greet Wang Xiaoyi. Thinking that he was here for Suleun's business, Wang Xiaoyi said, "Master Su, don't worry, Miss Su will be fine." Master Wang has misunderstood. Su Changqing waved her hands quickly after hearing this. "My daughter just came back from Jingzhou and doesn't understand anything. You can handle it no matter how you deal with such a big thing." "Mr. Su, are you kidding?" Wang Xiaoyi looked at Su Changqing and didn't know for a moment whether he was sure that Suleun would be fine, or whether he was really just letting him get up and deal with it. Su Changqing was also quick to talk just now. Seeing that Wang Xiaoyi was suspicious, he quickly added, "Master Wang, in the final analysis, I still failed to take care of my daughter, but this is a human life after all, you see. Don't worry, Sir Su, Miss Su's matter has been sorted out, and Miss Su will be able to go home safe and sound." "What?" Su Changqing was stunned. Wang Xiaoyi explained the matter, and Su Changqing understood it now. Co-authored by Suleun, this time, Suleun avoided it. "Master Wang, how did you find out that there was something wrong with that person?" Su Changqing hesitated and asked. "Probably a coincidence." Wang Xiaoyi did not directly say Suleun. After finishing speaking, he glanced at Su Changqing without any trace. The latter seemed to believe what he said and had no reaction. But Wang Xiaoyi could feel the annoyance in Su Changqing's eyes. As if nothing happened to Suleun, Su Changqing was not very happy. "Then how does Mr. Wang plan to deal with this matter?" "Don't worry, Mr. Su, we have sent people to investigate, and we will make the matter known to the public tomorrow, so that Miss Su and young Master Su can be cleared." Su Changqing smiled awkwardly, "Then I'll thank Mr. Wang first." Unable to get the answer he wanted, Su Changqing had to leave reluctantly, without even asking a word about Suleun's current situation. Li Mansion. Mrs. Li has been guarding Li Rui's yard for several days. Looking at the sleeping Li Rui, Mrs. Li had tears in her eyes again. Looking at it, Grandma also felt distressed. "Old madam, please stop crying. If you hurt your eyes from crying, how will I explain to you when the young master recovers?" After listening to her grandma's persuasion, Mrs. Lee wanted to stop her tears, but she couldn't. A few days ago, Li Rui woke up from a coma. When Mrs. Lee saw her grandson waking up, the joy on her face fell immediately before it rose. Just because Li Rui didn't recognize her at all when he woke up. Not only that, after the doctor saw it, he actually said that Li Rui was stupid. How can Mrs. Lee believe it? She is such a grandson, so why is she so stupid? But when several doctors said this, Mrs. Lee couldn't hold it any longer. She immediately rolled her eyes and fainted. Lee's father and mother hurried over and learned from the doctor that Li Rui might be stupid for the rest of his life. They were both stunned. "Doctor, did you make a wrong diagnosis? My son is going to take the top exam, how could he be stupid?" "Yes, doctor, would you like to take another look?" The doctor sighed. "Mr. Lee, Mrs. Lee, we have checked your pulse several times, but the result is still the same." "How can it be?" Father and Mother Lee both screamed. Mother Lee even grabbed the doctor's collar and refused to let him leave. Until Li Laohanlin arrived. "What are you two doing?" With one word, Li Laohanlin stopped Li's father and Li's mother from drinking. The doctor was also sent away respectfully by his servants. "Aren't you embarrassed enough?" Li Laohanlin glared at the two of them. If his son hadn't failed to live up to his expectations and even his daughter-in-law couldn't tell the difference, the Li family wouldn't have to rely on Li Rui alone. He called his servants and asked about Mrs. Lee's situation. It was somewhat relieved to know that the other party was just angry for a moment. Li Laohanlin entered the room, and Li Rui sat on the bed with a dull expression. "Rui Gear!" Li Laohanlin shouted. For a while, Li Rui looked at Li Laohanlin in a daze. After another while, he pointed at Li Laohanlin and laughed. "White hair, Grandpa." Li Rui said, stood up from the bed, stretched his feet forward, missed the step and fell to the ground. The servants quickly helped Li Rui up. "Master, be careful." How could Li Laohanlin not feel heartbroken when he saw his grandson's condition? But what made him even more uncomfortable was that it was less than a month before the Spring Festival. If his grandson was in trouble, how could he attend the Spring Festival? Is it that the Li family is destined to withdraw from the court? "Master!" Mrs. Lee's heavy voice came from behind. Seeing his wife's older look, Li Laohanlin turned around and held her hand. "You should have a good rest." "How can I rest when Rui is like this?" Both of them knew very well that Father Li and Mother Li had no ability to handle this matter. As elders, they could not afford to fall down at this time. "Father, Mother." Father Li and Mother Li followed Mrs. Li, with the same shame on their faces. They also know what they are capable of. The Li mansion is still supported by old Li Hanlin and Mrs. Li. As for Li's father and Li's mother, apart from managing a few shops, they can't help at all in these aspects. Seeing Li's father and mother, Li Laohanlin had a headache. "You guys go out, I will invite people to take a look again. If you miss this spring, there will be another time anyway. The most important thing now is to cure Li Rui's stupidity." But in the past few days, imperial doctors have also come, but no one can guarantee that they can cure Li Rui. This news was temporarily suppressed by the Li family. Fortunately, although Li Rui was stupid, he was not very noisy. He was just in a daze all day long, his eyes were clear and empty. Mrs. Li cried for several days. The doctors said that if she continued crying, she might go blind from crying. "Grandmother!" Li Minmin entered the house quietly. Seeing Mrs. Li's tears, she couldn't help it, but she still remembered Mrs. Li's eyes. "Grandma, you go and have a rest. I'll look after my brother." After Li Rui's accident, Li Minmin also changed her past temperament, as if she had grown up overnight. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 185. Chapter 185 Like a Dream. Mrs. Lee looked at her granddaughter's determined look and finally got up and left. Lee Minmin sat down by the bed, looked at her brother's face, and showed a wry smile. Li Rui was no different from usual after falling asleep. But when he woke up, he looked that stupid again. Vaguely, Li Minmin noticed Li Ruinu's moving lips, which seemed to be saying something. She lowered her head and listened carefully. Wanu. Hearing these two words, Li Minmin was startled. In the past few days, Li Rui couldn't even call his family members by name, but now when he fell asleep, he called Su Weiner's name. Li Minmin's heart tightened, and an idea came to her mind. If my brother sees Su Weiner, will he get better? At this point, any idea is worth trying. What's more, Li Minmin also felt that Su Weiner should know about this matter. I just told Mrs. Lee about the matter, but she got objection from Mrs. Lee. No. Grandma, I really heard my brother calling Sister Wanu's name, why can't we try it? Li Minmin said hurriedly. But Mrs. Lee's face was not good looking. She pulled Li Minmin and said earnestly, Minmin, it's not that Grandma is unwilling, but the last person who should know about this matter is the Su family. If your brother is like this now, if you tell the Su family, what do you think they will do? Li Minmin wanted to say that Su Weiner was not such a person, but somehow she remembered the last time her brother was drugged, and she hesitated. She asked herself repeatedly in her mind, what kind of person is Sister Wanu, whom she has been with for many years? But, Grandma, can you bear to watch your brother continue to be stupid like this? Li Minmin was extremely disappointed when she said this. Mrs. Lee never wanted Li Rui to get better, but the doctor and the imperial doctor had already seen her, so what else could she do? Your grandfather is already looking for a miracle doctor. Don't worry, Rui will get better. Grandfather and grandson hugged each other and comforted each other. At night, Grandma Lan came to Li Mansion. The lights have been turned off in Li Rui's house, but there are many people patrolling outside. Just because no one was watching at night, Li Rui ran out of the door after waking up and almost ran to the street, which frightened Mrs. Lee. Grandma Lan squatted in the corner and looked carefully at the people patrolling. While waiting for the shift to change, he followed quietly and entered Li Rui's house. The boy in the room has fallen asleep. Grandma Lan walked up to the bed and stretched out her hand to feel Li Rui's pulse. After confirming that he was really stupid, he breathed a sigh of relief and left. Unexpectedly, he raised his eyes and met Li Rui's black and white eyes. Grandma Lan made a move and subconsciously sprinkled the powder on Li Rui's body. Soon, Li Rui slowly closed his eyes again. Who? The boy woke up suddenly for some reason, noticed a vague figure, and shouted. People outside also heard the noise and knocked on the door and entered. A piece of powder floated towards me. Grandma Lan has a keen skill and can pass through everyone. Left Li Mansion soon. When Mrs. Lee and Li Minmin rushed to the yard, they only saw the servant who had fainted on the ground. Where's Rui'er? Go and see Rui'er. Mrs. Lee gave hurried orders and hurriedly entered the house. Fortunately, Li Rui was fine and just unconscious. Why did someone break in so well? Do you know what they are here for? Mrs. Lee asked. But the few servants who were sober could not answer anything. They didn't even go in, so they weren't stunned. However, when they arrived, the person was gone. I asked you to take good care of the young master, is this how you do things? Mrs. Lee was so angry that she slammed the table and her voice was extremely loud. On the bed, Li Rui's eyes moved. He also frowned deeply. He seemed to be stuck in a fog, and nothing in front of him could be seen clearly. As if in a dream. This is his wedding night. But he clearly felt that no one in the Li family, including him, was happy. But this shouldn't be the case. He married his sweetheart, Why would he be unhappy? He left the wine table and staggered towards the wedding room. When he reached the door of the room, his footsteps stopped. Looking at the door with the word happy on it, his face darkened. Then he heard his own voice. Now you are satisfied. But what if you marry me? I still won't like you. After saying that, he tossed his sleeves and left. Do not go. He shouted in his dream, but his body didn't obey his orders. Why do you want to leave? That's Wanner, his sweetheart. The dream is broken. His surroundings became a vast expanse of white again. Elder brother. Li Minmin saw Li Rui sitting up, quickly rubbed her eyes and stepped forward. It is already the morning of the second day. Mrs. Li was worried that what happened last night would happen again, so she added a lot of guards to the yard. Li Rui blinked and looked at Li Minmin slowly. I want, Wanner. Li Minmin was stunned. Brother, are you okay? Wanner. But after Li Rui finished speaking, he lowered his head, shook his head, and fiddled with the quilt. That way, it certainly doesn't look like it's getting better. Su Mansion, Peony Garden. Inside the house, Yuyao was dressing up Su Wainer. During her stay at Longjio Temple, Su Wainer didn't even have a chance to dress up, so now she naturally has to take care of herself. When Granny Lan entered the room, Yuyao was putting makeup on Su Wainer. Miss. Hearing Granny Ian's voice, Su Wainer did not look back. How is the situation? Same as we thought. That's good. The conversation between the two did not mention Li Rui, but they knew it well. Yuyao combed Su Wainer's hair and said, Miss, it's time to go to the old lady's place. Su Wainer responded, stood up and left from the dressing table. When they arrived at the old lady's yard, Su Changjing and Lu Shuiying also followed. Sister Wanner, are you back from Longjio Temple? Seeing Su Wainer, Lu Shuiying came forward. Su Wainer replied softly, Grandma is not in good health, I am worried. Sister Wanner is really filial, but the prayer was interrupted in the middle, isn't it too bad? Lu Shuiying looked at Su Wainer pretending to be puzzled. Su Wainer couldn't figure out what she meant, and there was sarcasm in her eyes. Cousin Shuiying is overthinking. I am a filial piety to my grandmother. If the Buddha knows about it, he will not blame me. After saying that, Su Wainer smiled and took the lead in entering the room. Mother. Lu Shuiying chopped Su Changjing's foot, quite dissatisfied. Su Changjing shook her head in disapproval. Her mother still loves Su Wainer now, and there is no need for them to have any dispute with Su Wainer. Don't worry, your grandmother still loves you the most. Lu Shuiying pouted and followed Su Changjing in. The expression on his face was childish again. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 186. Chapter 186 Echoing what others say. Dali Temple. A lot of people had already gathered at the door. It's as lively as a market. Soon, guards came around and said loudly, no noise is allowed in this important official place. The gate opened, and the people who had received the invitation rushed in excitedly. It is a lively event for them to see a lady bet with an old woman. As soon as he arrived in the hall, those people were dumbfounded. There was a corpse on the ground, covered with a white cloth and unable to see who it was. Could it be Miss Su? Is it possible that you didn't dare to face it and committed suicide first? Some people say this and some say that. When Wang Xiaoyi came in, there were even people who wanted to step forward and lift up the white cloth to find out. Fortunately, the guard had quick eyesight and quick hands and stopped him. Everyone, be quiet. Wang Xiaoyi sat in the hall and glanced at everyone. Soon, everyone became quiet. Master Wang, is this person Miss Su? Someone shouted. But as soon as he finished speaking, everyone took a breath of cold air. Wasn't it Suleun who came from one side? Who is that on the earth? Everyone looked at the body covered with white cloth. I have a guess in my mind. Seeing this, Wang Xiaoyi winked, and the guard stepped forward and grabbed the white cloth. In front of everyone's gaze, he lifted up the white cloth. The face of a man is revealed. Why is it a man? It's not that Mr. Liu. Who is this person? Those with sharp eyes saw the problem. Aren't the clothes on him the same as Mr. Liu's clothes? Soon, everyone noticed this. Everyone, in order to let everyone understand what happened better, please calm down and let Wu Zhou do the autopsy first. Wu Zhou had been standing on the edge early in the morning. Hearing Wang Xiaoyi's words, he nodded and walked to the corpse. The body of Mr. Liu has been inspected by Wu Zhou before. Now it's just another check in front of everyone. My lord, this man died of poisoning. The poison was hidden in his mouth. Wu made an autopsy and told the situation aloud. Everyone had a look of surprise on their faces. Everyone, you must be wondering why an old woman became a man. This is the reason. Wang Xiaoyi revealed the human skin mask in his hand. In fact, the people present had never seen a human skin mask before, and they were shocked when they saw it. But after the fright passed, everyone squinted their eyes and looked at it. The human skin mask was exactly the same as the Liu from before. However, even if this is the case, there are also people who do not believe it. Master Wang, how do we know whether this human skin mask was deliberately made by you later? And this person, is he really the Liu family? According to what Liu said before, we have found a person named Zhang Xiaoyi. Wang Xiaoyi said, and the guard brought a tray. There is a booklet inside and a folded portrait. Zhang Xiaoyi is indeed a real person. Wang Xiaoyi took the booklet and read the contents word for word. Zhang Xiaoyi, male, from Yangzhou, is 20 years old. His parents are still alive at home, and he has 3 brothers and sisters. In the 25th year of Jianyuan, he registered to join the army at the 16th year. It is not much different from what Liu said before. Wang Xiaoyi put down the booklet, picked up the folded paper on the side, and slowly unfolded it. You have all seen this Zhang Xiaoyi. As he spoke, he showed the portrait in front of everyone. Everyone looked at the portrait, and then quickly looked down at the body on the ground. This. Isn't it Zhang Xiaoyi? The household registration is recorded, and the seal of the year of registration is used as proof. It cannot be faked. What's more, everyone still remembers what Liu said at that time. Didn't it mean that Zhang Xiaoyi died in the northwest and his body has not been recovered? Why did he appear in the capital now, and even died of poisoning? Where can such a coincidence happen in this world? Those who are smart have already seen the problem. Is this person deliberately trying to discredit General Su yet? Unacceptable. Master Wang, you must punish me severely. It is said that severe punishment is required, but the person is already dead, so there is no room for severe punishment. Someone bowed to Suleun and said, Miss Su, we misunderstood you indiscriminately. Suleun looked at everyone's indignation, but his heart didn't feel much ups and downs. These people are just following what others say. She took a step forward and said in a heavy tone, everyone, it is not me who is really wronged in this matter, and it is not everyone who is at fault. I know that something happened on the northwest battlefield, and everyone is as worried as me. Maybe you also have relatives among you. On the battlefield, if so many lives were lost because of one person's mistake, I believe that person would not be easy off either. But before that, I hope not to jump to conclusions without any news. Everyone knows better than me what my brother Suye has done in these years. You also know better what kind of person he is. I am here, please don't slander me at will until the matter is cleared up. After saying that, Suleun bent down deeply. The voice also had a hint of crying. The common people who had been deceived and said a lot of bad things about Suya and Suleun blushed with shame. Even though Suleun didn't mean to blame them, they still remembered what happened before. As for the so-called Zhang Xiaoyi who died on the battlefield, once his conspiracy succeeds, Suleun will also die. They actually almost killed a life. For a time, everyone's eyes fell on Zhang Xiaoyi even more fiercely. I'm afraid, if he hadn't been a corpse, everyone would have rushed up to beat him. Suleun walked outside Dali Temple. There were many people standing outside the door. When they saw her coming out, they crowded around her. Fortunately, there were guards blocking him, so no one came close. How come only Miss So came out? What about Mrs. Liu? Soon, the people who had listened to the whole process in Dali Temple also came out. Tell everyone what you know. Suleun has already got on the carriage, and Lian Xian covers her with a blanket. Miss, are you going back to Su Mansion? The coachman asked outside. Suleun replied, go to Sun Mansion. Her mother has been worried about her these days. The carriage quickly drove towards Sun's mansion, leaving those noisy people behind. The door of Sun Mansion was closed and it looked very empty. Lian Xian stepped forward and knocked on the door. The gatekeeper opened the door cautiously and recognized Lian Xian. Miss Liang's in. The doorman looked back again and quickly opened the door. Little miss, you are here. Are my grandfather and mother at the house? We are all here, but I am worried about your situation. Has the matter been resolved? The gatekeeper asked. Suleun smiled and nodded, it's all solved, but isn't this door always open on weekdays? Why is it closed today? End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 187. Chapter 187 Battle. Hearing this, the gatekeeper waved his hands and sighed. Don't mention it, young lady. There are always people coming to make trouble these days, so the master asked me to close the door. Come in quickly. Suleun and Lian Xian entered the door. Walked all the way to the study. Sun Xiao, Sun Changping, and Sun Jiao were discussing something in the study when they heard a knock on the door and were stunned for a moment. Little miss. Lao Yang opened the door and saw Suleun outside the house, with a smile on his face. Yuner. Sun Jiao quickly stood up and stepped forward, looking at Suleun inside and out. Why are you so stupid? Why did you agree to such a thing? Although it was an accusation, Sun Jiao didn't mean to blame at all. Instead, her eyes were full of heartache. Mother, maternal grandfather, uncle. Suleun pulled Sun Jiao to sit down. The matter is settled. What were you talking about just now? Your mother is finally willing to make peace with her. What are you going to do? Suleun asked. As for why Sun Jiao proposed divorce at this time, she did not ask. I think the answer is very simple. Su Changqing may have completely disappointed Sun Jiao. I used to think that if you were fine, my mother would just tolerate it, but now I'm letting people get on top of me. Sun Jiao's face was cold. Yesterday, Su Changqing sent someone a message. In and out of the message, he told your grandfather to go to the northwest to ask for an order from the emperor. He knew your grandfather's health, but he still did this. They clearly want to take this opportunity to eliminate our Sun family. Suleun nodded. She knew Su Changqing's ambition. But it's so undisguised, it seems that the conditions given to him by King Yu are very generous. Mom, my daughter has something here that can help. Suleun shouted toward the door, Lu Feng. Lu Feng has met General Sun, and Mrs. Su. Lai Yufeng came out from behind the door and saluted several people one by one. Seeing Lu Feng, Sun Xiao was the first to recognize him. Aren't you one of King Jin's guards? Old General Sun will understand after reading this letter. Lai Yufeng handed over the letter in his hand. Soon, the letter was opened. The handwriting on it was recognized by several people present. It belongs to Suyet. Several people looked at it sentence by sentence, their expressions relaxed at first and then became solemn. Sulayun's eyes fell on the words eldest prince and second prince. To sum up, what Suye said in the letter is to reassure a few people that he is very safe now and that this time it is just an arrangement. But Sulayun sorted out the situation clearly. The attack on the mountain road was true. There was a traitor in the army, and he informed the second Turk prince of the arrangement. The people who besieged Suye and others were the men arranged by the second prince. However, the Turkic prince appeared and rescued Suye. It is no wonder that something happened to the general who went on an expedition in his previous life. Sulayun understood it, but there was no expression on his face. As long as it's okay. Sun Shao sighed, feeling relieved. If something really happened to Suye, he would have to go to the northwest even if he risked his life. Northwest. The war is tense. Yu Hualan sent the second prince to lead the army, and now it is pressing towards the northwest border. Generals, do you remember clearly? Xiao Shenjiao disturbed the sand table and asked. Everyone said in unison, remember clearly. This battle depends on you. The soldiers took action one after another. Xiao Shenjiao put on armor, his eyebrows were sharp and angular. He jumped on his horse and looked straight ahead not far away. Yellow sand is flying there, and wind and rain are about to come. Although Xiao Shenjiao was the commander, he also chose to go into battle, on the one hand to boost morale, and on the other hand to expose weaknesses. The two armies faced each other on the battlefield. The second Turkic prince rode a brown war horse and said loudly, is the person opposite Xiao Shenjiao, the king of Jin. Xiao Shenjiao clasped his fists in the distance to signal. I've heard that you are the best among the princes. Do you dare to fight with me today? The word outstanding person was emphasized by the second prince. In fact, everyone in the capital knows that Xiao Shenjiao is a Shang Zhonyang. Since the queen's death, the talented King Jin has gradually declined. Therefore, many people are discussing why Emperor Jianwen has not established a prince yet. It seems that he still has expectations for his wife's children, but King Jin is really unable to support him, and he still has some skills in wielding swords and guns. But this ability is not worth mentioning in front of other generals. Xiao Shenjiao chuckled, but the distance was a bit far away, but the laughter could not reach the second prince. He could only see the corners of Xiao Shenjiao's mouth curved. A nameless coldness emerged. The second prince frowned and shouted, "Get ready to fight." The next second, yellow sand flew up, and the two parties faced each other. The second prince stared closely at Xiao Shenjiao. With the idea of catching the thief first, he tightened his grip on the horse and jumped over the crowd. But with just such a rhetoric, a spear went straight to his throat. The owner of the spear is none other than Xiao Shenjiao. The strength and speed shocked the second prince. The flash of swords and shadows on the battlefield. The second prince originally thought that he was used to fighting and should be able to compete with Xiao Shenjiao, but after a few moves, his expression became serious. Xiao Shenjiao was more difficult to deal with than he thought. Even, the second prince looked through the gap and saw that the expression on Xiao Shenjiao's face was still a bit leisurely, as if he had not exerted all his strength. Xiao Shenjiao, is this all you have? The second prince felt that he had been dazzled and couldn't help but sneered. Xiao Shenjiao didn't answer and easily accepted the second prince's attack. At this moment, the wind howled. On the battlefield, this voice is extremely easy to ignore. But Xiao Shenjiao waited for a long time. He pulled the reins and turned the horse's head. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of the man who fired the cold arrow. The next moment, Xiao Shenjiao took the arrow without dodging. Seeing the arrow hit his shoulder, the second prince showed joy and swung his sword down, straight into Xiao Shenjiao's face. If the knife had hit him, I'm afraid he wouldn't have survived. Xiao Shenjia was on guard for a long time. He pulled the reins and turned the horse's head slightly, using his strength to avoid the knife. A strand of hair was chopped off. The cold light passed through the hair. The second prince's pupils shrank, and he lowered his head and looked at his abdomen in disbelief. The tip of the spear has penetrated. Both commanders were wounded and the soldiers stopped moving. The second prince vomited blood from his mouth. Apparently, he was more seriously injured than Xiao Shenjia. "Get out quickly!" the deputy commander shouted. Xiao Shenjia stared at the Turks who were retreating, his face suddenly turned pale, and black blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. "Your Majesty!" Black Hawk quickly stepped forward and pulled the reins. The battle between the two armies has also come to an end. Xiao Shenjia was helped into the camp, and the military doctor was already ready. The arrow almost pierced Xiao Shenjia's shoulder, and it was laced with poison. People in the camp came and went with one heart in mind. This is the king of Jin. Even if the emperor gives him a cold shoulder, he is still the legitimate son of the first empress. If something happens on the battlefield, who can withstand the emperor's wrath? End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 188. Chapter 188. It's useless to talk too much. The arrow shaft has been broken off. But when it comes to handling arrows, military doctors are a little bit embarrassed. The arrows used by the Turks are in the shape of barbs. If they are pulled out directly, they will definitely tear the flesh, allowing the toxin to penetrate faster. Therefore, the only option is to pull it out from behind and pierce the shoulder completely. The military doctor washed his hands, poured some powder on the wound, and then stretched out his hand to push down the end. On the couch, Xiao Shenjia groaned. The arrow was pulled out. The wound was also treated cleanly. But when the military doctor checked his pulse again, his expression changed drastically. This toxin has penetrated into the internal organs. The military doctor's face turned pale. Before he pulled out the arrow, it was clear that this was not the case. The poison penetrated so quickly. He quickly applied the acupuncture and barely managed to catch Xiao Shenjia's breath. But there was nothing else he could do. The poison was beyond his comprehension. "You can't cure it?" Black Eagle frowned and looked at the military doctor. His dark face frightened the doctor and made him tremble. The lower officials are incompetent, and this poison cannot be cured. But now it is not a question of whether it can be solved, but it must be solved. If something goes wrong with Xiao Shenjia, the Turks may take the opportunity to attack. General Zhao and Zhao Minjian, who was dressed in men's clothing, hurriedly entered the camp. As soon as they arrived here, they heard that Xiao Shenjia had been hit by an arrow, and they ran over without even taking time to tidy up. "How is the situation of King Jin?" Zhao Yuanhong pulled the military doctor over and asked in a deep voice. The military doctor quickly explained, "General Zhao, His Royal Highness the King of Jin has been poisoned, and now it has penetrated into the internal organs." "What's the meaning?" Zhao Yuanhong's voice was so loud that he startled the military doctor again. Seeing that the military doctor was almost out of breath, Zhao Minjian hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Dad, please be gentle. It's not like you don't know how strong your hands are." The military doctor was grabbed by his collar. Because he was wearing a winter coat, if he applied a little force, his neck would easily be pinched by the collar. The military doctor was indeed unable to breathe after being pulled by Zhao Yuanhong like this. The face gradually turns purple. As soon as Zhao Yuanhong let go, the military doctor gasped and patted his chest. "I actually felt that I was just a little bit away from death. Is there really no chance of treatment?" Zhao Minjian asked further. The military doctor calmed down and thought for a while. "This poison should be from the Turks. If we can get their antidote, we can save the prince. It is like saying it in vain." Obviously, both Zhao Yuanhong and Zhao Minjian knew this. "General Zhao, please let me take care of the prince. Externally, let me tell you that the prince needs to recover from his injuries, and the affairs of the military camp must be left to you, General Zhao first." Black Hawk opened his mouth. Zhao Yuanhong also knew that now we still need to rectify the soldiers. He nodded, looked at Zhao Minjian, and hurried out of the tent. The night is getting darker. Black Eagle leaned in the corner, observing the surroundings. There were patrolling soldiers walking around outside the camp. Soon, a voice sounded. "Black Hawk Guard, may I come in?" "General Lin, please come in." Black Eagle stood up straight and looked at General Lin, who came in. The other party's gaze passed across the couch, and then quietly returned. "I have some clues about what the prince asked me to investigate. Things that are done in detail." General Lin nodded. "There are two people who are more suspicious. But now that the prince is like this, what should we do? Don't tell anyone about the detailed work in advance. Let's wait until the prince is more awake before mentioning it." "How is the prince doing?" "Not good. Don't spread this matter," Black Hawk reminded. General Lin naturally understands this truth. When something happened to Su Ye, there would be some turmoil in the army. If news about Xiao Shenjiao's bad condition spread, it would probably affect the morale of the army even more. "Don't worry, I won't tell you." Beijing, Su family. Li Minmin came to Su mansion early in the morning and waited in the main hall for a long time before Su Weiner came. "Sister Weiner." As soon as he saw Su Weiner's figure, Li Minmin stepped forward to greet her. Su Weiner glanced at her and avoided her without any trace. "Minmin, why are you here?" "Sister Weiner, go see your brother." "What's up with him?" Su Weiner asked as if she didn't know. Li Minmin looked hesitant and looked at the servants around her, speechless. "You all go down first." Su Weiner asked the servant to leave very considerately. After the others left, Li Minmin said softly, "Something happened to my brother, and he only wants to see you now." Knowing that Li Rui was stupid, Su Weiner certainly didn't believe Li Minmin's words. Even a little suspicious. Su Weiner stared at Li Minmin for a while, but didn't see anything wrong, so she said dubiously, "What can happen to Brother Rui?" "Minmin, don't lie to me." "Sister Weiner, I really didn't lie to you, I beg you to go see your brother." As he said this, Li Minmin bent her knees and was about to kneel down in front of Su Weiner. Su Weiner quickly stretched out her hand to pull her back. "Minmin, what are you doing?" "Sister Weiner, if you are still angry about what happened last time, Minmin apologizes to you and begs you to go see your brother." Looking at Li Minmin's red eyes, Su Weiner couldn't bear to sigh. "You get up first, and I'll go. It's just that I came back from Lanjiao Temple to take care of my grandmother. If I go to Li's house at this time, I'm afraid someone will criticize." Upon hearing this, Li Minmin reacted, "Sister Weiner, don't worry, no one else will know about your visit to my house. Then I'll go there, go and come back quickly." "Uh-huh." Li Minmin quickly wiped her tears and took Su Weiner out of the Su mansion. "Sit in Li Mansion's carriage and enter Li Mansion directly from the back door." Li Minmin took Su Weiner to Li Rui's yard. Before he even got closer, he heard a commotion. "It is something that is broken. Go away, you are all bad people." Li Rui was going crazy in the yard, his hair disheveled, and Su Weiner didn't recognize him for a moment. This is also the second time she has seen Li Rui like this. Last time, it was at Lanjiao Temple. "Elder brother." Li Minmin looked at Li Rui in the middle of the yard and couldn't hold back her tears again. "Look who I brought here." Li Rui seemed to have not heard the sound and smashed a teacup on the ground. People were afraid of hurting him and did not dare to come forward at all. Looking at Li Rui like this, Su Weiner's eyes flashed with disdain. Li Rui today is not worthy of her. It's a pity that Li Rui is useless. She has made arrangements for him and Suleun, but she is still not sure. Su Wainer was filled with anger when she thought of this incident. If she hadn't failed, why would she have made Li Rui stupid? A sober Li Rui is certainly more useful than a stupid Li Rui. It is useless to say more now. Su Wainer originally had a cold face, but when she saw Li Minmin looking over, her expression changed. She was worried and panicked. "Brother Rui, what's going on?" "Brother, he..." Li Minmin choked with sobs and couldn't say anything to explain. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 189. Chapter 189 Dreamland. At this moment, a voice sounded. "Miss, be careful." Su Wainer and Li Minmin looked up together and saw a teacup coming towards them. Seeing that the teacup was about to fall on her face, Su Wainer pulled Li Minmin in a panic. The teacup hit Li Minmin on the forehead. Then it fell to pieces on the ground. "Minmin, are you okay?" Su Wainer looked panicked and blamed herself when she saw this scene. In the courtyard, Li Rui's eyes blinked. He seemed to feel something, but soon fell into confusion again. "Miss, are you okay?" Li Minmin's maid ran up and saw the blood on Li Minmin's forehead, and her face turned pale with fright. Fortunately, there is a doctor in Li Rui's yard, so someone quickly bandaged Li Minmin's wound. Mrs. Li heard that Li Minmin was injured and hurried over again. When he saw Su Wainer, his expression changed slightly, but he didn't say much. "Minmin, why did you hurt your forehead so well? It is not a good thing for a woman to leave scars." Li Minmin has not yet engaged in marriage, and if her appearance is really ruined, no matter how high the Li family's lintel is, the person Li Minmin married will not be able to become a responsible matron. At most, she is a second young lady. After all, the face of the mistress is also the face of the master's family. Can't be destroyed. Fortunately, the doctor said that as long as it was taken care of well, there would be no scars, so Mrs. Li was relieved. From the servant's mouth, I knew that it was Li Rui who hurt Li Minmin, and Mrs. Li had no place to vent her anger. Mrs. Li. Su Wainer hesitated to speak, reminding Mrs. Li of her existence. "Why is Miss Su here today?" Mrs. Li knew very well that she was afraid that Li Minmin went to find Su Wainer behind her back. Su Wainer must have seen Li Rui's appearance now, and she couldn't avoid it after all. "Grandma, I asked Sister Wainer to come." Li Minmin was afraid that Mrs. Li would be angry with Su Wainer, so she quickly explained. "Now, she is also in urgent need of medical attention. Just doesn't seem to work." Li Rui clearly saw Su Wainer just now, but had no reaction. What kind of reproach could old Madame Li say to Li Minmin's face? She looked at Su Wainer. "Wainer, you have been with Rui since you were a child, and I treat you as half a granddaughter. You must not tell anything about Rui." Mrs. Li, "Don't worry, Wainer won't say anything, but how could brother Rui become like this?" Su Wainer's eyes turned red as she spoke. This emotional look somewhat comforted Mrs. Li. It seemed that Su Wainer was sincere to Li Rui. "We are still investigating this matter. Minmin called you here because Ting Rui kept talking about you." Su Wainer sighed and comforted, "Mrs. Li, why don't you let me go in and take a look?" After Li Rui smashed the teacup, he calmed down. Has been sent back to the room by the servant. Hearing this, Mrs. Li hesitated. "Wainer, we are not sure about Rui's situation. What should we do if we hurt you?" "It's okay, I'll just stand further away and take a look, maybe it will be useful." The last two words fell into Mrs. Li's ears and moved her completely. She ordered 2 skilled guards to take Su Wainer to Li Rui's house. Mrs. Li and Li Minmin were worried and followed behind. Inside the room, Li Rui was leaning in the corner, his eyes dull and he didn't know where he was looking. "Brother Rui!" Su Wainer shouted at the door. Li Rui made no movement. Su Wainer glanced at Mrs. Li and Li Minmin behind her, endured her displeasure and took another step forward, moving very carefully. If Li Minmin hadn't blocked her just now, she would have been the one to lose her appearance. Thinking of this, Su Wainer's sympathy for Li Rui's idea had long since disappeared. "Brother Rui, it's me, Sister Wainer." As soon as the word Wainer was spoken, Li Rui in the corner raised his head. Her eyes fell straight on Su Wainer. "Brother has responded." Li Minmin couldn't help but feel a little happy when she saw this scene. Having a reaction is a good thing. But Su Wainer, who was being stared at by Li Rui, felt cold all over. For some reason, when she looked into Li Rui's eyes, she always felt like something terrible was about to come out. She didn't dare to go any further and even took a few steps back. "Sister Wainer, try again." Hearing Li Minmin's urging, disgust flashed across Su Wainer's face. She didn't want to face someone who might go crazy at any time. Thinking of this, Su Wainer raised her hand to hold her forehead, seeming a little tired. "Minmin, I feel a little uncomfortable." Seeing this, two servants took Su Wainer out of the house. The house door is closed. Looking at Su Wainer's somewhat pale face, Mrs. Li and Li Minmin also knew that Su Wainer must have been frightened. After all, with Li Rui's current appearance, even Mrs. Li and Li Minmin still didn't know what to do when they saw him. "Mrs. Li, Minmin, I'm sorry, I'm a little scared." Su Wainer pursed her bloodless lips, looking so soft and weak that no one could bear to blame her. "Wainer, you don't have to blame yourself, but the current situation also shows that Rui has an impression of you. I'm thinking about going to the Su family to propose marriage in a while. How about that?" "No." Su Wainer's retort stuck on her lips. "Mrs. Li, this matter cannot be rushed. If Brother Rui makes a fuss at the wedding like this, it would be really unsightly. You see, why don't I come and see Brother Rui when I have time? Wait. He's in better condition, let's talk about marriage." Mrs. Li nodded in agreement. Su Wainer's words did not make sense. "Wainer is right, I'm worried. You were also frightened today. Go back and have a good rest. This matter. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone." Mrs. Li asked someone to send Su Wainer off. Inside the house, Li Rui leaned in the corner and fell asleep again. He came to the dreamland again. But sometimes, he felt that this dream was extremely real. So much so that he couldn't completely regard this as a dream. After getting married, he never saw his bride. Even Wainer was not seen. The only thing that is certain is that the woman who married him is not Wainer. The whole Li family was very indifferent to that woman, and only my grandfather occasionally said a few nice words for her. At the beginning, the woman made trouble. He heard the other party's voice, which sounded familiar. The days passed by. One day, he finally met Wainer. But the person standing next to Wainer was King Yu. The two of them were called talented and handsome by the people around them, but he could only stand in the corner and watch. Wainer saw him, her eyes were red, and she complained to him when no one was around. Said that none of this was what she thought. It was the Sun family who forced her to do this. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 190. Chapter 190. Come and visit in person. He was still wondering what this matter had to do with the Sun family, but he had already gone to the house angrily. When she burst into the door, the woman in the room showed a look of joy on her face. The next second, the words he spoke made the woman's face lose all expression. And he also saw what the woman looked like. How could it be her? It is quiet in the dead of night. Under the dim candlelight, the man put the written letter into the envelope. Out of the camp, the men did not shy away from the patrolling soldiers. General Lin. When the soldiers saw him, they were not surprised. He was in charge of the patrol tonight, and the soldiers only thought he was inspecting it. General Lin walked towards the corner and came face to face with a yawning soldier. The two passed by each other and left with their backs to each other, as if they had nothing to do with each other. Just after walking around the corner, a dark shadow fell in front of General Lin. General Lin, Your Majesty invites you. General Lin's breath was stagnant. He didn't even realize that he was being stared at. Seeing Black Eagle's cold eyes, General Lin swallowed without trace. Is the prince awake? You go and take a look, won't you know? Can't refuse. General Lin could only follow Black Eagle to Xiao Shenjiao's camp. It was a little dark in the camp, and General Lin walked in anxiously. The moonlight coming through vaguely illuminates a figure. General Lin's back stiffened and he knelt down in panic. Your Majesty. He seemed to realize something. General Lin's archery skills are not bad. Xiao Shenjiao's cold voice came from the front. There was gauze wrapped around his shoulders, and a cold light flashed on his hands. Seems to be playing with something. General Lin took a closer look and saw that it was the arrow that had been removed. Looking carefully, there is still blood on the arrow. His heart was pounding, and he tentatively replied, Thank you, Your Majesty, for the compliment, but Your Majesty, you are awake, why didn't you let the military doctor come and take a look? Throughout the day today, Sun Malayang and Zhao Yuanhong were in charge. According to the military doctor's opinion, Xiao Shenjiao should still be in a coma. What's more, he came in at noon to take a look. He looked like he was not far away from death. How could he be pretending? The military doctor you mentioned is the one next to you. General Lin's pupils shrank and he looked to his side in disbelief. He did smell a smell of blood when he came in, but he was so panicked that Xiao Shenjiao woke up that he completely forgot about the smell of blood. The candle is lit. Under the firelight, the body with its head and body separated was lying next to General Lin. As a general, Lin Hui's expression also changed drastically. From the injuries on the body, it can be seen that he was severely tortured before death. Can you recognize General Lin? Xiao Shenjiao put down the arrow in his hand, and the iron object was placed on the wooden table, making a dull sound. Even General Lin's heart skipped a beat. His face remained calm, but his tone became a little muted. The general is blind, but the prince just seemed to say that he is a military doctor. I wonder what he committed and was punished like this. General Lin said earlier that he wanted to report something to the king in detail. I wonder who he is. Xiao Shenjiao's topic suddenly changed. General Lin stabilized his mind, managed to calm down, and replied, except for the prince and your guards, including the last general, there were a total of 7 generals who participated in the conversation that day. General Suye's life and death are unknown now, so the last general will go first. Investigated the remaining 5 generals. The last general discovered that General Yu and General Ye disappeared for a while after the conversation, and no one knew what they had done. Later, I found out. General Lin paused and looked up at Xiao Shenjiao. Seeing that he had no reaction, he continued, the general found out that when General Suye led his troops to Qingping Pass, General Yu deliberately the delay prevented General Suye from setting off to Qingping Pass in time. You mean, General Yu is more likely to be suspected? Xiao Shenjiao's face was split into 2 halves by the light. Half of it is still trapped in darkness, while the other half is exposed by candlelight. The thin lips looked cold under the firelight. The general will only have doubts in the end. Does General Lin have any doubts about himself? Your Majesty is aware that the general will never harm General Suye, let alone betray the emperor or the court. General Lin knelt on the ground, his face becoming serious. As he finished speaking, a pile of letter paper fell in front of him. Seeing the familiar handwriting on it, General Lin understood that he was completely exposed. His eyes flashed with determination, and he jumped up from the ground and rushed straight towards Xiao Shenjiao. He bets that Xiao Shenjiao is just at the end of his game. That poison is the secret medicine of the Turkic royal family, there is no way Xiao Shenjiao will be fine. With a chill in his chest, General Lin stopped before he could reach Xiao Shenjiao. He lowered his head and looked at his chest. All that was exposed was the broken arrow shaft. What pierced into his body was the arrow that pierced Xiao Shenjiao earlier. This arrow was shot by his own hands. How could he not recognize it? There is just a difference, the poison on the arrow is gone. But he still felt cold all over, just because the arrow completely penetrated his heart. General Lin stared and fell to the ground. Blood gushed out from under his body. The smell of blood in the camp became stronger. Xiao Shenjiao made a fist with one hand and put it at the corner of his mouth, making a few dull coughing sounds. Your Majesty, the poison in your body has just been cured. Please rest first. I will handle it here. Black Eagle looked at Xiao Shenjiao. Xiao Shenjiao responded, slowly stood up and walked to the couch. This movement made his face pale a bit. Black Eagle put away the two corpses while paying attention to Xiao Shenjiao's condition. This morning, Xiao Shenjiao's condition became more serious. The Black Eagles are all ready to go to the Turkic camp to find the antidote. Even he didn't know that all this was Xiao Shenjiao's arrangement. In the afternoon, the military doctor came to see me. Black Hawk stared at the opponent's movements. In just a moment, the boy following the military doctor stepped forward and knocked the military doctor unconscious. Just as he was about to take the man down, the servant made a voice, "I'm here to save your master." Black Eagle was startled, the voice was somewhat familiar. The other party took out a packet of medicinal powder from his arms, sprinkled half of it on his shoulders, and mixed the other half with water for Xiao Shenjiao to drink. After a while, the prince woke up. When he saw the young man, Xiao Shenjiao raised the corners of his lips slightly and said, "I'd like to bother you, the eldest prince, to come here in person." "Your Highness, King Jin, isn't he afraid that I won't come?" "Why be afraid?" Black Eagle then thought that this young boy was the great prince of Turks. Not long ago, he and the prince met each other. Ashinaju glanced at the unconscious military doctor and said, "His Royal Highness King Jin can interrogate this person. If there is nothing else, I will leave first." After saying that, Ashinaju didn't really stay much and turned around to leave. It almost feels like the enemy's military camp is our own military camp. End of this chapter.